Transitional Council. In Washington, Walid Fares is at the National Defence University in London. Shashank Joshi is at the Royal United Services Institute and Harvard University. And here with me in the studio is Philip Stoner, the former Deputy UK Defence Attaché in Paris. Many thanks again to you all. Now, we were talking before the break about how close the rebels are to ousting Gaddafi, but I'd like to talk a bit now about what Libya might look like once Gaddafi has gone. Colonel Bunny, there have been some concerns raised here in the West about the fact that the rebel council isn't as united as it might be. What would you say to that?
I couldn't hear you well, please. Would you say again, please?
How united are the rebels? Are there divisions? Are there splits? Are there problems within the rebel group? Within the Transitional Council?
Yes. You know, my lady. We just start in peace on 17th of February, and as you know, and everybody knows that we are really suffering from the lack of munitions, lack of weapons at the beginning. But now I could say that the whole our problem is solved by our NTC and also by the support of our friends in the free world. I could say that now we are just 45 or less than 50 kilometers far from Tripoli. So the whole problem is, I could say, we can forget it now and we can solve it now. We have just one aim, one target, one dream, all of us from the east and the west. This dream is to liberate Tripoli and to dismiss this tyrant out of Libya.
All right. Shashank Joshi, the rebels say they're united, and they are certainly united in their aim to unseat Gaddafi. But what might happen once Gaddafi's gone? Is there a risk that the National Transitional Council might fall apart?
The risk is there. May I first say to Colonel Bunny, I think we all here share his ultimate objective and admire his courage and his ideals. However, it does his side no favours to pretend that the NTC has no problems or to pretend that there are no divisions, because it simply reinforces a view that the rebels don't understand the vulnerabilities they will face. Now, when the NTC wins, and I honestly think it will soon win, it will face a number of less well-intentioned actors, some of whom will be vying for influence in the new political setup. It's extremely important the NTC encompasses every major group, addresses all their grievances, impresses upon its subordinates, including those in the West, who are, of course, further away from Benghazi and therefore less subject to its influence, that any kind of retribution or revenge attacks will be fully counterproductive. And most importantly of all, it needs to cede power relatively fast. I don't think the NTC will shatter into pieces. I don't think Baghdad-style chaos will result. But unless the NTC holds these risks in the back of its head, holds them in view, it makes them much more likely.
Walid Fares, is there a risk that tribal divisions might come to the fore? We could even be in a worse situation post-Gaddafi than before Gaddafi. Of course, in the West, the memory of Iraq is still very fresh.
Yes, indeed. The tribal divisions are a problem now. There will be a problem in the future. But these are problems that a strong, central, unified government can address. I don't say they will have to solve immediately, but can address. The other real problem is the political composition of the opposition today, which will become, eventually, the interim government and then the government of the future. Today, the map is very simple. You have Gaddafi's regime on the one hand and everybody else, all the coalesced forces, including former diplomats, former military, former bureaucrats, Islamist militias, seculars, and others. The problem is going to begin, the political one, when Tripoli is taken over by this interim government. And then they're going to, as we've seen in Tunisia and Egypt, but this time with weapons, because these people will have weapons, decide over the form of the new government. What we're going to see is very simple. It's already online, it's on internet. All the ex-opposition will try to form political parties. You're going to certainly have the largest party, the Islamists, but also the left wing, the Communist Party, the Arab nationalists. All these forces will vie for power. The most important mission for the interim government at the time of their seizure of Tripoli, if that would happen soon, is to make sure that no party is armed. Because if one of the militias continue to be a militia after liberation, then you're going to have a Somalia-like model, which is not good for Libya at all.
Will that kind of volatile situation require the presence of an international peacekeeping force?
Well, most the components of the opposition, that's a very good question, have already said very clearly they didn't want to have boots on the ground in the process of liberation to begin with. And of course, they wouldn't want to request and require such forces in Tripoli or Benghazi after liberation. They do claim that they can, on their own, move to the next to the stage 2 of the political process. But if they fail, if they do not disarm the militias, if they do not concentrate all power in the arms of a new army, then everything is open. We can't even see from here. It's too far.
Colonel Bani, what's your thoughts on that? Do you want an international peacekeeping force in Libya once Gaddafi is gone?
My lady, I think you have really so dark and so black picture about my country after the liberation. Who's saying that the militias, Islamic parties and the militias and everybody has a gun, they will fight each other, and Libya is going to be like Somal. He doesn't know our people, because we lost, as I said, we lost 40 years from our life. We were in a dark tunnel. No one knows anything about Libya and the Libyans. After the liberation, I could say that it will be a paradise. A paradise will appear in North Africa. This paradise is Libya, and no one will be in this paradise if he didn't support us now. First. Second, who is saying that it's going to be like Somalia? I would like to tell him that, did you visit Libya before? Did you visit the liberated cities now after the revolution? You don't know us anyway. Now everybody, the whole militia is now under the control of the police, the interior ministry, and the others. They are under the control of the defense ministry. So after the liberation, while everything is, I could say, suitable, everybody he will just come to the, I could say, the NTC and drop his guns, and we will change our mind. Instead of carrying guns, we will carry another thing to build up our country again. But who is saying that we are going to be like Somalia is wrong.
Okay,
yes.
Colonel Bani, I think there is a lot of concern when we see what happened in Iraq after another brutal dictator was brought down, that there were lots of sectarian divisions and there was a lot of violence that's still going on many years later. I think that's what people are very worried about. How will you ensure that that doesn't happen in Libya?
My lady, we are so far, we are so different from the whole Arab country, from the whole Islamic country, because we are, all of us are Muslims, all of us are Sunnah. So we don't have any divisions, we don't have any colors, I could say, other colors in our mentality and in our culture. First. Second, the tribes means a lot in our country. So, and also our tribes push us, I could say, sorry for my language, push us only for the positive actions, not the negative actions. So I am sure, and everybody, the whole people, they visited our country after the revolution. They know that we are so different. We are not like Iraq. We are not like Somal. As I told you, we are so different because you don't know us. All of us are Sunnah, or all of us are Muslims. So we will not be like the others. We are really so far from the others.
Okay. Are you encouraged by what you heard there?
I think it's very interesting, and this whole issue about the fact, clearly, Western countries, having seen what's happened in the past, Afghanistan, not least of all Iraq, were cautious. And because the West is involved to a certain extent, no boots on the ground, at least not as far as we can see, the West is cautious about what happens next. What's the end game going to produce? What's going to happen after Gaddafi goes? But I think this exuberance that Colonel Bani's showing the moment is understandable. But I think one morning we're going to wake up and Gaddafi will have gone, and we will have to sort of deal with the consequences. Will Gaddafi's son perhaps still be around, lurking in the midst, trying to get involved with the democratic process which is trying to take hold, and maybe perhaps throwing a pebble in the works at the same time and trying to prevent it for whatever reason. So all of that, it's great to be very positive and very sort of forward-leaning, as Colonel Bani is. But on the other hand, I think we have to take things step by step and be slightly cautious about how things are going to evolve. I think one key thing we must remember is at least the big difference with Iraq is we haven't got either Americans or other countries coming in and acting as the the other party, the invading force. And I think that, if I might say so, is what Colonel Bani is trying to bring out here, is the fact that, he represents part of a unified, yet to be unified properly, country that is now actually basically winning its patriotic war, if you will.
More like Egypt than like Iraq.
I would say so, yeah.
Shashank Joshi, you heard the rebel leader there. We're nothing like Somalia. We're nothing like Iraq. What do you say to that?
Well, I have one question I would love for Colonel Bani to answer me, which is, who killed Abdul Fattah Younis? And if he says to me he was killed by Gaddafi loyalists, then it concerns me about, I'm deeply concerned about the level of understanding he may have as to the dangers that lurk beneath the surface. So let me pose that question to Colonel Bani.
Right.
Who killed Abdul Fattah Younis?
Colonel, over to you.
Yes. Sir, 4 days before that accident, the Gaddafi TV, they said directly to Abdul Fattah Younis, wait our gift for you on next Thursday. And on next Thursday, Abdul Fattah Younis killed by someone, group. We don't know now. I cannot really talk in details about that because the investigation didn't finish yet now. But everybody now in not in Benghazi or the east part, in the whole Libya now is really so sad about that. That group who killed Abdul Fattah Younis, I think that it looks like revenge or something like that. After maybe 2 or 3 weeks, the investigation will be ended, and you will know, sir, directly who killed Abdul Fattah Younis. We are not afraid of the truth because of that. We will not hide it, and we will tell the world, even if the truth is so hard, we will say it because it's the truth. And we know that the truth, it's like the bridge who will take us to the other world, to the democracy world, to the truth. So I could say that within 2 or 3 weeks, everybody will know who killed Abdul Fattah Younis and why they killed him.
All right, does that answer your question, Shashank Joshi?
Well, the answer is open. I think we'll wait and see, although I honestly think that Ali Tarhouni himself has said it was an Islamist militia on the rebel side. I'll tell you one thing, though. One thing that is good about the fact that Abdul Fattah Younis, who was, of course, Gaddafi's former interior minister, a former Gaddafi regime, senior regime member, one of the good things about the fact that he was even on the rebel side in the first place is the indication that the rebels are willing and able to work with those on the regime side. And I think that's going to be very significant once they enter Tripoli itself. If they have an open hand to those who have worked with the regime, that is their very best chance for stability. And I think that's one of the lessons we learn from both Afghanistan and Iraq. Both in Afghanistan, the Bonn process, which excluded the Taliban. In Iraq, the process of de-Baathification that alienated so many loyalists. The fact that the rebels are willing to avoid revenge, avoid retribution, if they can continue that, I think that's their best hope for success.
Are you encouraged by that, Walid Fares, that unlike, as Shashank Joshi just pointed out, unlike in Iraq where there was the de-Baathification program which got rid of anyone who had anything to do with Saddam Hussein, that's not the way it might go in Libya?
Well, Laura, I mean, as the Colonel was indicating, there is no 100% comparative situation. Yes, Libya is not Iraq, and Iraq is not Somalia, and Somalia is not Syria, so on and so forth. We know that, but what we're trying to say is that the current forces that are allied from Benghazi against Gaddafi are not unified. This is not one political party. This is not one organization. They say it. They had their websites.
But in Egypt,
they had it before.
What's the difference between that and Egypt? In Egypt, they weren't.
Well, the difference is that in Egypt, Laura, they don't have militias on the ground. Or what it was in Egypt, that the armed forces of Egypt heeded the call of the West and protected the demonstration. In Libya, you have multiple forces on the ground. We see them on, national TV, international TV, on Al Jazeera. We hear them. We go to their website. It's not that this is completely unknown. My question is this. The bureaucrats and the army officers, who, by the way, those of Benghazi, didn't come from the moon. They were part of the Libyan state. And of course, the major officers who are training and moving the rebel forces were part of the Libyan army. That's a good thing. My simple question is this. Once they will enter Tripoli, will those disarm the militias. The colonel is telling us that the militia is going to come and drop their weapons in the Ministry of Interior and Foreign Affairs or what have you. It's fine. But that's not what we anticipate, because those who grabbed power during a revolution, they will have to negotiate. They will have to request things once they are inside Tripoli. But these are things that we cannot project, because he's right. Libya is not Iraq and Iraq is not Somalia. We'll see.
How worried are you, Walid Fares, about elements of Al-Qaeda infiltrating the rebel movement?
Well, that's a very traditional question across the Middle East. Every time we mention an Al-Qaeda presence, we're going to have two camps. One that says Al-Qaeda is all over. That would be Gaddafi, for example. And the other camp would say there is no Al-Qaeda. We even have dignitaries from the United States going to Benghazi to pay visit. And they said, we haven't seen Al-Qaeda, as if Al-Qaeda is going to come and shake their hands. Well, of course, Al-Qaeda are in Libya in as much as they are in Algeria, in the Sahel. This is going to be a problem that goes with Libya, with all other countries. It will have to be dealt with by the next government. My worry is not really about Al-Qaeda. My worry is about the ability of the next government to be a functioning government as soon as they take over from Gaddafi.
All right, Colonel Bani, I'd like to give the last word to you. I'd like to know how you see your country in 6 months' time. What will Libya look like in 6 months' time?
I wish, and I am sure of that we are going to be in a paradise. This is my country, and I would like to mention for one thing for your guests about the death of Abdul Fattah Younis. I would like to say that John Kennedy killed and between his guards, and Sadat also in Egypt killed between his guards. And the same happened. It's an accident. It's the destiny. So I wish that our destiny, my country's destiny, would be better than any other countries, better than the Somalia and Iraq also, and Afghanistan too. So I am sure that after the liberation, as I told you, a paradise will appear in North Africa. This paradise is Libya, inshallah.
So you will have a democratic state?
Yes, of course, we are running for that. We are working for that.
All right, Colonel Bani, many thanks indeed. And thanks as well to all my other guests tonight. Walid Fares in Washington, Shashank Joshi in London, and Philippe Stoner here with me in the studio. Thanks to you for watching another debate right here at the same time tomorrow. Stay tuned. This is France 24.